Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bustles? Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Present.
Mayor Rickaman?
Here, can
Thank
you
you.
stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Oh, my God.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend McDowell, would you say a few words before we start with a little invocation, please?
Most merciful, we come to you today with thanksgiving in our hearts and yet grace surrounding us. Be with us as we assemble today. Allow your presence and yet your spirit to touch each one of us individually and collectively. Allow the bright light of change and expansion in this city be a promising reminder that if we hear and listen to what the Creator says, our city will continue to prosper. We ask it in your name. Amen.
Madam City Manager, if Mr. Taylor asked for a point of privilege before we started.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's a pleasure today to welcome Mark Fisher, and I'm going to ask Mark to introduce. If y'all will stand up and ask Mark in a second to introduce his partners. They're the proprietors of our brand new restaurant across the street, Ambrosia. And gentlemen, I want you to meet Dr. Bustles and Councilperson Duval and McDowell. They're your three city council official representatives. I'm the food guy. They represent you. Yeah, this is not a gland problem. And again, welcome you guys to Columbia. I know you have multiple businesses here, and you got a beautiful restaurant. I enjoyed a great dinner last night, and just want to know that anything we can do to help you be successful, we are. Now, Mark, if you'll introduce your team, I appreciate it.
Please come up to the podium if you would.
Yeah, if you would come up here, where everybody gets a good look and all the reporters in the room, a great story on a brand new restaurant opening up downtown for this weekend would be great.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. We were proud and honored to serve Joe and Amanda last night over at Ambrosia. It was our first dinner service that we've had since we've opened. Behind me are the managing partners of Ambrosia, George Simbas, Jay Floyd. A lot of hard work went into the building, and I'm very proud to say this every opportunity I get. There wasn't a construction crew that built that place. These two guys, hammers and nails, saws and tile, they did it all. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce George Simbas, Jay Floyd, and to say to the entire room, we look forward to seeing and serving you all. Authentic Greek fare, all of our food is house-made. The recipes are generational, going back to George's grandmother and mother. And the only thing that we don't make in-house is the phyllo dough. Everything else is lovingly and painstakingly recreated, made. So George, Jay, it's all you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We thought we were just going to come meet a few people, not speak in front of the council. We got service starting here in about 30 minutes or so, so we're going to make this quick. But we had the opportunity to come into this great building that was a historic landmark. A lot of you remember it as the Elite Epicurean. And when we came in, the owner of the building, Jim Papadilla, some of you guys know, he said it's got to be good food. So that was what we strive for, and then now it's like, now we need great service. So we were just pleased to be here. It was like Mark said, it was blood, sweat, and tears, and we were really looking forward to serving you guys when you come over, and we look forward to seeing you. And I'll let George explain how all this came about real quick.
I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to serve Columbia and hopefully do something like the Elite for this block and moving forward for the city. So seriously.
First of all, thank you for your investment. Thanks for what you're doing. I've seen the menu on the wall, haven't been in yet, but can't wait to try it. But I will tell you, yesterday I did a radio show, and at 5:15 yesterday afternoon, I got a request to pass on to you gentlemen, which is, when the Epicurean was there, they had a dish called the Bandit, and apparently it was a double stuffed pork, lamb chop with feta cheese and tomatoes and all this. They said, please do a special with it, that people will come out of the woodwork for it.
I will tell you this, we do have a few throwback dishes. You probably remember shrimp Scorpio. And then we're going to have some chefs' preferences. We're not going to call them specials, and then we're going to have some more throwbacks to the elite, and then some other generational recipes that we just didn't quite have room for yet. So the Bandit will
I'll
definitely.
make sure I let the listener know, because he wanted me to promise that I would get that message to you guys. Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all enjoy. Good night.
Are we going to have our pre-meeting over at the Ambrosia now?
I was going to share with these guys that it was a time that more city business was undertaken across the street than maybe even in City Hall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda as
Second.
a motion, a second? Any questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan? Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At this time, Mayor Rickaman and Council, we will ask for any public input on the agenda items as outlined. There will be another opportunity at the end as well for public input.
Mayor, there's no one signed up at this time.
All right. Madam,
Thank you. The approval of minutes. Council is asked to approve the September 6th and September 20th, 2022 council meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, concerns, corrections? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Moving into a period of presentations, our first being item 2, Domestic Violence Awareness Month Proclamation, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
You know, for us to bring awareness, we have a lot of opportunities to celebrate things here, and we also have an opportunity to bring a lot of awareness. And I think Domestic Violence Awareness Month is something that should always be on our mind. And unfortunately, over the pandemic, we saw an increase, and hopefully in the future, we'll see a decrease, and we continue to work together as a community to decrease those numbers. But we recognize that domestic violence is a problem that plagues our communities, our neighborhoods. South Carolina is ranked in the top half of the states in the nation for the rate of women killed by men, according to the recent statistics from the Violence Policy Center report on homicide data. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men experience severe physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. Women's ages from 18 to 34 generally experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence. Men who as children witnessed their parents' domestic violence were twice as likely to abuse their own wives than sons of nonviolent parents. 1 in 10 high school students experience physical violence from a dating partner in the past year, and 43% of dating college women report experiences violent and abusive dating behaviors, including physical, sexual, digital, verbal, and other controlling abuses. The City of Columbia recognizes the commitment of the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault to provide life-saving resources to domestic violence victims and their families. So therefore, I, Daniel J. Rickaman, the Mayor of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, along with my fellow members of Columbia City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in the great city of Columbia, urge my fellow citizens to recognize and participate in its observance. We have 2 groups here today who are big advocates, and we couldn't go without them. As we mentioned, the South Carolina Coalition of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, but also Sister Care. And I have 2 proclamations to give to both groups. And so if we'll come up here, we can take a photo as we present these proclamations. Please don't forget, we have a march coming up on October 29th, right? It's the 29th or 29th at Ellen Page Park.
Mayor,
So we look forward to seeing everybody there.
Mayor, can I add one more comment?
Yes, ma'am,
I
please.
just wanted to thank the groups. I know this weekend they had the Hush No More event at Riverfront Park, and I did see a nice young lady from Sister Care out there volunteering. So I want to thank you all for your support of other people's events and giving them the support that they need.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Item 3, American Pharmacist Month Proclamation, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
Pharmacy is one of the oldest health professions concerned with health and well-being of all people. Pharmacists are specifically educated with a focus and level of expertise on medication therapy and are ideally suited to work collaboratively with other health providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes by providing services through medication therapy management. And it is important to promote the profession of pharmacy as an essential health care provider. Pharmacists provide both expertise, accessibility, which are crucial to patients, fully optimizing access to medications that are not self-administered, such as, but not limited to, immunizations. And whereas the American Pharmacist Association and the South Carolina Pharmacy Association have proclaimed October as an American Pharmacist Month with the theme, Your Pharmacist, Improving Health and Increasing Access. Therefore, I, Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, do here proclaim the week of October 25th through October 31st as American Pharmacist Month, Legislative Week in the City of Columbia, and encourage all pharmacists and student pharmacists to become more involved with our Columbia community as we encourage our Columbia community to recognize the importance of pharmacist profession. Could y'all stand, please?
Future doctor.
Yay. Well, we sure hope they decide to stay with us, Mayor, that's for sure.
Oh, I think they're going to. They realize what a beautiful community
Right.
we have.
Put on
and
the
they'll
pressure.
fit right in.
Put the pressure on them, Mayor. All right, item 4, the 2022 Fire Prevention Month Proclamation, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
Where's the chief?
Come on, y'all can't hide back there. Can't just send the pretty people forward.
That's why we came.
Are they gonna come from?
The City of Columbia, South Carolina is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting in Columbia. Fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at their greatest risk from fire. U.S. fire departments responded to over 361,000 residential structure fires in 2021, according to the National Fire Protection Association. Those fires resulted in close to 3,000 civilian deaths in 2021, representing the majority of all U.S. civilian fires. That's 76%, to put that in perspective. The Columbia-Richland Fire Department responded to 499 structure fires over the course of 2021. The National Fire Protection Association says a person has 2 minutes or less to escape from a house safely in the event of a fire. The National Fire Protection Association has advocated for the adoption and practice of home fire escape plans and results, and the City of Columbia first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention, protection, and education. The Columbia-Richland Fire Department's Fire Protection Office performed nearly 4,100 fire inspections, presented 24 fire education programs, conducted 62 home fire safety surveys, and installed over 283 alarms for citizens in need over the course of 2021. Whereas the residents of the City of Columbia, Richland County are responsive to public education measures and are able to make personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in homes. Whereas 2022 Fire Prevention Month theme is Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of planning and practicing home fire escape plans. So therefore, I, Daniel J. Rickaman, the mayor of the City of Columbia, along with my fellow members of Columbia City Council, do by here proclaim October 1st through 31st, 2022 Fire Prevention Month for the year of 2022. Chief?
Thank Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Really appreciate this honor. You know, it is always our desire to keep Columbia and Richland County safe from fires. And of course, you read the theme for this year, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape. And that's what we've been doing over the course of this month. But fire prevention is not just a October thing, it's a year round. We do these inspections, we do these demonstrations, and we have been really focusing this month on working with schools. We even did a fire drill at one of the city buildings today to make sure that we are safe. So again, thank you for this honor, and we really appreciate it.
Should be 15. What?
All right, Mr. Mayor and council. The next item, I don't have a city manager's report per se today, but I do have several special employee recognitions and a very special and timely introduction. So with that, I will get started. You all had asked from my last city manager report that I bring back several Columbia Police Department employees. I'm also bringing forward a few fire employees who are also involved in these particular services and recognition. So we would like to again extend a special thank you to Sergeant Mary Sumter and Officer Eunice Ferguson for representing the CPD while joining other Midlands law enforcement as honor guards for that service. And they are here today, so I want them to stand and come forth and be recognized. Stay put, ladies. Y'all keep standing because we got several. Division Chief William Brocious of the Columbia Richland Fire Department was the keynote speaker that day, and I think Chief Brocious is here. Is Chief Brocious? Additionally, Chief Holbrook joined Major Roberts and Lieutenant Wesley at the Eastminster Presbyterian Church for the Servant Leader Service and Awards Luncheon. And at that luncheon, as we previously indicated, 2 of our very own up-and-coming female police officers were recognized and presented with the Eastminster Presbyterian Servant Leaders Award. And they are here today, Officer Lauren Basil, Southeast Region, and Officer Ashanti Rembert from TRU, along with Captain Kevin Patterson of the Columbia Richland Fire Department. I don't think Captain Patterson's here, but we want to recognize him, and Officer Basil and Officer Rembert come forward. So, Mayor, I don't know if you want a photo op with these fine law enforcement council and mayor. Wants to get on the photo. Come on, Chief, both Chiefs. They know they like to be on the picture. Go ahead, you know he likes to be on the picture. Thank you. So as you all are taking your seats, we also had from before and again another recognition from the Columbia Police Department, the FBI National Academy graduate, Captain P.J. Blendowski. And I'm going to let Chief take over with that one because he has an additional recognition for Captain Blendowski.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mayor and Council, thank you, first of all, for allowing police department and the fire department to be recognized today. Chief Jenkins, thank you for your leadership and your continued partnership. It's a privilege to be on this team. I want to make a couple comments about the young ladies that we just recognized and kind of what it stands for to me. The Servant Leadership Award speaks for itself, but these two ladies represent, they're fairly new police officers, and they have found their role in our department very quickly, and I've seen them both in action, and I can tell you that they represent us very well. It's just exactly what we expect out of our police officers. And I've personally experienced with Officer Basil on a call dealing with some of our challenged populations that we're dealing with, just to exercise extreme patience and professionalism and empathy that probably would not have existed 20 years ago, 25 years ago in that same situation. It was a pleasure to watch her at work. Sergeant Sumter is, she's a professional standards internal affairs sergeant, and she does a spectacular job there, but most importantly, how she mentors our young police officers, especially our young female police officers. And then Eunice Ferguson, let me tell you what she represents. She represents over 30 years on this job. She retired with distinction, and she wanted to give back. She came back, and she is a school resource officer, so her service continues. So next, I would like to recognize Leroy Solomon. And Sarge, if you can come up here.
Come on, Sarge.
So this is another representation of someone that put service before self. He he retired with distinction from the police department as a sergeant after 27 years, and he has chosen to come back and continue to serve and represents us every single day downstairs and keeps this building safe and looks after our city manager and staff every day. And it's my pleasure to recognize him for his second go-around for a 5-year service pin. Sarge. And
Sarge
last,
doesn't like the limelight. He's already headed down the hall. He's going already.
he's got work to do downstairs. And last, I want to recognize Captain P.J. Blendowski. P.J., if you don't mind coming up front. Captain Blendowski joins a pretty elite group of police officers. The FBI National Academy is an opportunity that is afforded to less than 1% of law enforcement in the United States. Very distinguished group of individuals. It's very difficult to be selected and complete. He joins fellow Columbia police officers, Deputy Chief Kelly, Major White, Major Drafts, and Captain Calby in this distinguished group. And I want to read just a second, just to take a few minutes to read a little bit about what he did. He graduated from the National Academy. He was a member of the 283rd session. That was comprised of 235 law enforcement professionals from 49 states, 21 different countries, 5 branches of armed services, and 5 federal law enforcement agencies. The curriculum at the National Academy is accredited through the University of Virginia. Law enforcement personnel who successfully complete this 11-week program have an opportunity to earn both undergraduate and graduate credits for their studies. Captain Blendowski chose the demanding graduate level curriculum, which is very challenging. He studied areas of management, organizational change. Lord knows we have that. Emotional intelligence. Lord knows we need more of that. Managing the law enforcement image, executive writing, and fitness. And as a result, he earned 17 graduate credits at the University of Virginia. He's now working towards completing his graduate studies. In addition to these academic accomplishments, he participated in a series of fitness challenges throughout the 11 weeks and successfully completed the Yellow Brick Road Challenge. The Yellow Brick Road is an arduous Marine Corps 6.1-mile obstacle course, and he was awarded a coveted yellow brick for completing that. I would end with saying organizational success and maintaining a culture of excellence is achieved through developing leaders in an organization. Captain Blendowski has displayed significant sacrifice and commitment to our organization by completing the FBI National Academy. His performance exemplifies all that is expected of a leader and a law enforcement professional, and it's my pleasure to recognize him for this achievement. And last, it's also my privilege to recognize him for 20 years of service today.
Okay, well, we're going to keep going. I always thank council for allowing us to do this because it's so important. We'll have another recognition. I'm going to ask Miss Missy Gentry, Assistant City Manager for Development, to come forward. Missy? And this is a surprise. So.
Yeah, this is a surprise. So I'm going to ask Gloria Saeed to come up here with me. And I'll start with it's her birthday, so I'm going to tell her happy birthday. So 20 years ago, some of you may remember Deborah Livingston, who is one of our former directors. We lost her a few years ago, but she hired Gloria, I believe, 20 years ago for the city. And Gloria has had several positions. She started with the city as a loan officer. So she came from the private side and came into the city and learned our loan programs. She served as Deputy Director for Housing and Development, Executive Director for CHDC and TNDC, Interim Director of Community Development, and then in 2017, she was promoted to full Director of Community Development. I want to talk a little bit about personality. As y'all all went through the Myers-Briggs, and all of the city department heads have also conducted Myers-Briggs, I want to talk about Gloria's personality. She's an ISTJ, so I don't know if any of y'all are ISTJs, but I want to describe a little bit of that. They carefully plan things well in advance. They enjoy orderly life. They like things to be well organized and pay great attention to detail. They prefer to follow rules and procedures that have been previously established. They love order, and rules means they can sometimes be stubborn. And I will tell you, Gloria and I sometimes talk about that. And with the help of our seated council, we're working on flexibility and expanding our horizons, and I know that she's up for the challenge. Some of the words that I would describe her: loyal, deliberate, responsible, responsive, careful, structured, conscientious, poised. There's never a moment that I've dealt with Gloria in my time at the city that she just hasn't been anything other than professional and kind, regardless of the message she's delivering, and I think that speaks really well of her. I will tell you, she's a true public servant. She cares about the city, she cares about her community, and she cares about all of the individuals that she serves, and by virtue of her leading the department that the city serves. So I want to thank her for her service. We're better off for it, and appreciate all that she's contributed. Oh, I do. I have her 20-year pin I will present, yes, and some flowers, and I do have her a birthday gift.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah, I don't think your mic's on.
Sorry. Okay, starting again, beaming, smiling. I'm really excited about this hire, 2 new hires. And the first that I will announce with a release to follow from the city today, the City of Columbia announces Kamisha L. Hepard as Director of Homeless Services for the City of Columbia. And I want Kamisha to come forward. I have got to learn that, or she will have to learn, there's a lot of moving parts around her all the time. And she said, Ms. Wilson, yes, you had said that, but you never told me where to be and what time. And do you know what I do every day in my day job? She was concerned that she was not dressed to the nines. I said, you are beautiful inside and out. Everyone will see that. And as I had previously told you all, she's one tough cookie. So welcome to Kamisha, and I'm going to read about her. As director, Hepard will develop the necessary systems and programs to include Rapid Shelter Columbia to provide accountability for the city's overall strategies and outcomes to address homelessness. She will serve as a liaison for the city to coordinate and strengthen community partnerships in an effort to provide greater impact through the agencies and organizations. Kamisha has an associate's degree in applied science, Bachelor of Science in Social Work, and a Master of Social Work, which she received from the University of South Carolina. She is certified in trauma-informed care, child welfare, and forensics, and she specializes in working with substance abuse clients and their families, as well as children, adolescents, and adults in need of counseling. Hepard is a seasoned leader, certified again in those areas, and very skilled at engaging clients to bring forth behavioral changes. Her prior experiences and relationships make her particularly equipped to ensure a seamless transition to a new era of homeless services in Columbia, from my perspective. So welcome, Kamisha. I don't know if you want to say anything, then I'll introduce your counterpart. Or
I just want to say hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to doing the hard work.
Thanks,
Thank
Kamisha.
you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So our second new hire is Ms. Mackin Wall, and Mackin is actually traveling out of the country for a previously scheduled memorial service for her grandfather. But Mackin Wall will be our new homeless services project manager. And Mackin has served the homeless community for several years through her educational pursuits, volunteerism, and work experiences. She is also a University of South Carolina graduate. She has her Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology and Master of Social Work as well. She, in 2019, received the South Carolina chapter from the National Association of Social Work as the Master of Social Work Graduate Student of the Year. And so a lot of her experiences are going to be very helpful to us. She specializes in project management, outreach, fundraising, and building a network of community partners. And as project manager, she will manage the day-to-day operation of Rapid Shelter Columbia and provide oversight for the provision of wraparound services and other strategies for homeless services. I do believe that Mackin's skill set and collaborative spirit will be assets to Director Hepard as they focus on a positive community impact. And I do hope that as we took our time to hire these women with the credentials they have, but really more than that, the passion for service, I've witnessed how they already work with our unsheltered homeless population. And I know that this council has put a big priority on addressing that. And so that included my decision-making for hiring them, and I wish them the very best. So thank you very much.
Great.
Madam City Manager, I think we can't go without recognizing Chief Holbrook for being named the Chamber of Commerce Public Servant of the Year.
Absolutely.
So, Chief, congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So many wonderful things happen in our city and in the city's team, so I appreciate the time. At this point, we can move forward with the consent agenda, items 6 through 18.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan? And Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ordinances first reading, item 19, ordinance number 2022-083, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 14, Article 4, to add Section 14108, discharge of fireworks, establishing.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
First of all,
Mr.
would you just take 1 second as the chairman of the Public Safety Committee and kind of just for the public outline, because I want to make sure everybody understands we're not saying no fireworks. It's just you put limits on fireworks.
We're just adopting an ordinance that sets more reasonable times for fireworks to be used. There'll be a civil penalty. It will be enforced by CPD, and it has exemptions in there for permitted fireworks such as the ballpark, fireflies, events, and other ones that are permitted by the fire marshals. And it is a complement to the ordinances being considered by Richland County. We were trying to make this so that the whole county, Richland County and the city of Columbia, would have almost the same type enforcement of the use of fireworks. Mainly it says don't make your neighbors mad by shooting fireworks all night.
Move to previous question.
I need a second.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 20, ordinance number 2022-092, consenting to the inclusion of property in a multi-county industrial business park
So moved.
project framework.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Any discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 21, ordinance number 2022-095, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 23, Utilities and Engineering, Article 5, Water and Sewer Rates, Section 23-149, Sewer Service Rates. And I believe Attorney Knotts will come forward to provide a bit of explanation.
Thank you.
So, May 18th, in 2021, we passed an ordinance that did amend sewer service rates. And so it was Section A and B of our code, 23-149. When it was sent over to the Muni Code to be published, somehow a separate Section C was deleted. And so it's been deleted. We've been working under it, but it's been deleted. We could have put it back as a Scrivener's error and not brought it forward. There's no legal reason to bring it to you, but just to be transparent, if someone was looking at the code today and they find that it's added in a couple of weeks, they'll wonder where it came from. So that's what we're adding. The Section C that was omitted by the Muni Code folks has been put back into the code section.
Okay, could you describe, since you brought up Section C, can you just say what it is for the public?
About what it is,
Or
Section
just
C?
clarify for the public.
Yeah,
This is
clarify
no
for the
rate
public.
increase.
It's not a rate
That's
increase
just-
at all.
right.
It's not changing anything, no, that's one reason we want to bring it forward. There's no rate increase.
That's right. That's right.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Item 22, ordinance number 2022-096, authorizing the conveyance of .16 acre being a portion of unopened Washington Street in Richland County for a project named a proposed hotel at Wayne Street and Hampton Street.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, concerns, questions? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Resolutions, item 23, resolution number R 2022-084, permitting the City of Columbia Fire Department to collect money for the Muscular Dystrophy
So
Association.
move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, this is my annual no vote. I would like to.
It's not your only no vote, so don't make it sound like that.
I would just like to explain, since we have a good number of new members of council, why I vote no on this particular ordinance, resolution, excuse me. State law requires that municipal governments consent to having a collection of money in the rights of way in the highways. And I think, and I had always advised my cities that called when I was with the municipal association, don't allow this. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for the officers that are in the rights of way collecting this money. It's dangerous for a precedent for other people that see our officers out there and think that they don't have to have permission, and we have pop-up collections all the time with boots out there, and it's dangerous because the amount of money that is collected by these officers, that's cash money, and I think it's a dangerous thing. So I vote no at the proper time.
We haven't gotten there yet, but,
Move to previous question.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
No.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Let the record show that I voted with Mr. Duval.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a sunny day.
Okay, item 24, resolution number R 2022-090, adopting City of Columbia fats, oils, and grease fog grant rebate program and funding.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Probably should have noted that that item also came with a favorable recommendation from the Economic Development Committee. Event resolutions, item 25, resolution number R 2022-069, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only at Paint the Town Garnet and Black USC Homecoming event at 747 Saluda Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Item 26, resolution number R 2022-077, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only at the Chili Cook-Off at the 2100 block of Green Street on Saturday, November 12th, 2022.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Moving into a period of appointments, several here today. I know Ms. Wood is here to assist, starting with the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mr. Mayor, you gonna make the motion?
I have a motion to accept the application and appoint Davis Whittle.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yeah.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye. I have a motion for the Columbia Musical Festival for Amanda Cooper and Nick, and I'm going to,
White.
White, excuse me, I could not read the writing. For the two open positions, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission.
Yep. So I have two, it looks like we have two applicants, Mr. Mueller and Mrs. Stevenson.
Motion to approve? Are you making the motion?
I'm making the motion for those two. Is there a second?
There's-
And any discussion, concern? I know that we needed to confirm a third applicant.
There's actually only one opening on the Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission, and it's for developer realtor.
Okay, I'm not, on the Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission?
Yes, because council actually appointed other people earlier, I believe, this year, and so we re-advertised for it right after we sent out the initial press
What
release.
was the requirement?
It was so the one position that is left is developer realtor or realtor. The other ones, like Columbia Green and some of the ones that we thought were available are not. They appoint Columbia
So
Green.
let's hold that so that we can go back.
When we advertised it again, it was for developer realtor, and that was September 15th, I believe,
Yeah.
once they informed us of the change.
Motion to
There's
defer.
only one position.
Oh.
And it's got to be a developer realtor?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ms.
Yes.
Stevenson can fill that. You want to fill it?
Well, that's the question. Since Diane and Hal develop the
Yes.
Vista buildings, does that fill the requirement?
Pretty close.
I think so.
That's the one person that
Close
seemed
enough
like
for
they
government work.
would match.
So let's amend the motion to include that we'll take Diana Stevenson to fill that position. There's a second?
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you. Before we go to the next one, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
In looking at the binder, I like mine. I did not realize that we had two individuals seeking reappointment. Do we get that with the match?
For which? For Columbia Music Festival Association?
Yeah. Do we get the seeking reappointments on the match board?
Yes, you do. It's listed. I named them on the message that we send out. We'll say that these two are seeking reappointment. It was for the two names, Christopher and Basil.
I'm
So,
gonna double check. I don't think I saw the reappointments, but I'll double check.
okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure the Greater Community, the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council.
Yes, sir. There are 7 vacancies and one, well, actually 8 total, but one is reappointment. And he was voted as the incoming chair while his term was still.
Okay, so I have a
Hadn't
motion
expired.
for the Greater Columbia Relationship Council for Lindsay Shealy, Erica Wright, Carl Hoffman, Alexis Boland, Tyler Bailey is the reappointment, Sarah Lyles, Willie Hartford, it looks like. Hereford, excuse me, Ashley McClendon.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Then we had the Planning Commission
Yes.
next. We have one position, one applicant. Mr. Goodlett. Got a motion? Is there-
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye. And then we're deferring the Riverbanks Park Commission
Yes,
to
sir.
another date.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, we're going to defer because there was a little mix-up on terms, and we don't have an
Excuse me.
opening at this time for Riverbanks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I didn't want anybody that applied to think that we were just bypassed.
Yes, sir. One of them had an extended term based on agreement.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on the Planning Commission, we thought there was only one appointee, but there's several listed here. On the Planning Commission, you got 4 names on this sheet, but only had one name on the match
So essentially, so we listed the extra applications that came in beyond the deadline, just in case they had been council recommendations or someone that you all had recommended to apply, just so that you could see it. But the majority of the applications, all of them that you reviewed, you received, those came in after the deadline. But just in case, we wanted to make sure to include them in your book. In case they were someone that you all had recommended. We didn't want to exclude them.
One of the applicants had several.
After the date, though.
That was after the application date. And Mr. Duval, I had asked Ashley that if she would notify that lady that applied late when we have the next application for the next opening on the commission, we'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. At this time, we are moving into a period of other matters. One item, item 33, Office of Gun Violence Prevention Briefing, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
Thank you very much. As you know, and I don't know who's driving the presentation since I'm up here. But as you know, this is a crisis in our community, and We're up 31% in gun violence here in our community, and the rate we're going to be over 100 and probably 130 shootings in our community. And so as we look at what other cities are doing and looking at the impact of gun violence, we want to make sure that we're moving forward. And with this office, we really wanted to have an opportunity that we could take advantage of not only the funding opportunities that are here today, but the future funding opportunities at the federal level and the state level to address gun violence. And having an office that would be the quarterback. If we could just run through the slides. Just to give you an idea of gun violence impact, it's close to $330 billion annually, $531 to $1,000 per person. Single murder is estimated to cost the U.S. cities between $10 and $19 million. And these are reviewed from all studies. Next slide. Obviously, gun violence disproportionately affects black males in our community. Same rate among black males in South Carolina in 2020 was 35.4 per thousand, 4 points higher than the national average, and twice the rate of gun-related deaths among South Carolina white South Carolinians. Columbia's Office of Gun Violence Prevention. The general overview will serve as the quarterback for the city crime reduction. The key element of the mission will be assessing and improving environmental conditions, behaviors that lead to violent outcomes, cataloging, coordinating available resources from service providers, stakeholders, also being a critically responsible piece of the overall puzzle. Will be charged with connecting community members with job training, apprenticeships, and alternatives to lifestyles that lead to violent outcomes. The office also helps connect CPD with communities in order to establish strong relationships. As you know, the framework for addressing, we've talked about this before, people, place, behaviors, prevention, intervention, and enforcement, which is the key framework on all national programs from Curb the Violence, and other programs that have been nationally recognized and worked in several other communities, all leading from our Office of Gun Violence. This is everything from therapy to gun violence reduction strategies, to street outreach, to blight, nuisance abatements, hotspot policing. As you saw from the data that was shared with us from our police department, how much data and material that they have, and now we got to have someone who can help use that information and help with those strategies by bringing those community partners along with CPD into the program, making sure that we're hitting every aspect of this. Next slide. All right, and then obviously having a gun violence gives us advantages for federal funding. It allows the city to be eligible for numerous federal grants. Senator Scott has vocally supported Columbia creating this office to put federal funds into play to reducing that crime. And as we said, that's 31% increase this year. Allowing the city to serve as a custodial for these efforts will remove duplicate services, allow the city to work with partners and engage in succeeding in the community. This has to be a partnership between the community, the city, and law enforcement. Obviously, there are several case studies that we can cite. Richmond, California, one of the first, seen an 80% reduction in gun violence since 2007. States like Illinois and Colorado have established statewide office seeking local success. Peace dividend. And it's a very interesting term. I've learned a lot of terms over the last 9 to 10 months, but this one hits home. 25% reduction in gun violence in a city can lead to incredible economic impacts dubbed peace dividends. And you think about when we take those pockets out of our communities and we start rebuilding, reinvesting, giving people job opportunities, taking the elements that create more crime out, what we could do. Think about 25% reduction of 131 shootings. Obviously, the funding sources we've discussed, this would be to use American Rescue Plan Act to establish a 3-year of gun violence, and this gives us the opportunity to build up all the national and federal, state opportunities to fund the office and continue to do that, but we got to get started. This is an eligible expense for ARPA. As you can see, we're looking for 3 years' worth of funding to set up the office, staff, for director and the staff. Obviously, that will be an RFP process that will go out to have that person along with community involvement. I think you can go back to the memo that we had previously for this, and that it's a justified expense. So we're looking for a total of $802,000, which I will tell you, the police department and several other folks will tell me that's not enough money, but we got to start somewhere and we got to invest to get it. So step one, we got to look at is identifying people and places behaviors. And then step two is obviously the prevention, intervention, enforcement of those measures. Coordinating existing gun violence prevention organizations, law enforcement, create a process to choose, fund, and implement anti-gun violence efforts, track the progress of anti-violence efforts, and reevaluate as need, offer drug abuse and CPT services, create community centers to act as one-stop shops for additional resources. We have to get into the communities and work, and we've got to have somebody in charge. Obviously, the structure, as you see, is the Office of Gun Violence, nonprofit government agency, law enforcement, people, places, and behavior. The three that keep coming through every bit of the framework: people, places, and behavior, then prevention, intervention, and enforcement. Obviously, we've identified where that 2% of Columbia's surface is up 53% of the gun violence. This is spread through multiple districts through our community, so it's not in just one community. Some communities have been tagged with having more crime, but actually they don't. They just have pockets. We need to make sure that we're pinpointing those pockets, that we're building trust in the community, encouraging them to seek alternative to violence. Short-term goals: achieve 100% government agency participation in statistic reporting, increase participation of local nonprofit organizations involved in data sharing, implement a 6-month deadline for action plan proposals with a yearly follow-up, create a catalog of available state and federal grants, and those are everything from collaborative reform initiative grants to Project Safe Neighborhoods grants to crisis intervention team grants. There's so many grant opportunities out there if we have an office that we can go after. Plan a number of annual community events to foster continuous interaction, create goals for the agency to meet. So, outputs, outcomes, reduce gun violence should be our number one. Coordinating with existing organizations, which is what we've talked about, aligning and leveraging those resources, making sure that we're effectively and efficiently combating gun violence and identifying other courses of actions to stop killing. Put Down Guns Now, Young People with Miracle Deliverance Temple, spearheaded by Jack Lowe. More Justice in Columbia is advocating for gun violence. Building better communities, and the Sally Brazil Foundation nonprofits. Project Safe Neighborhoods, which is run by CPD, Serve and Connect, and Ceasefire are just some of the existing organizations that we can leverage resources and opportunities to reduce gun violence. Targeted state and local agencies to participate. That's our municipal district, family, Richland County School Board, District Attorney, Police Department, Solicitor's Office, Health and Human Services, Department of Commerce, Columbia Street Department, Parks and Recs, and Columbia Housing Authority, to name a few. Prevention, intervention, enforcement. Can't say those enough. People, places, and behavior, prevention, intervention, and enforcement. So we'll coordinate, the efforts to interrupt transmission of gun violence by focusing upstream lives, delivering appropriate interventions based on age and circumstances, evaluating whether interventions are having the intended outcomes. This is not a deterrence, it's a prevention by addressing the root causes of gun violence. Gun violence is evidence-based strategy involving law enforcement, elevating roles of the community, social service to reduce those guns. That's active engagements, that's home visits, that's responding to incidents, that's having a crisis team to be out there and deal with all the things that go with that. That affects the shooters, the families, and the neighbors. Also, later implementing transitional job program, housing assistance stability, and ID obtainment resources, making sure that we're getting the existing wraparound services and the opportunities to those folks that they know what their opportunities are. Prevention and intervention, enforcement again goes back to play. Create projects in pinpointed communities, provide safe spaces. Safe space provide things, mentorship, trauma support, recreation activities, educational workshop, job readiness, how to do an interview, how to dress for an interview, career development, vocational training, helping people get better quality jobs in our community, organizing cleanups and reinvestment, taking advantage of Love Our Block that we introduced, taking advantage of the community development block grant money to improve our neighborhoods, creating programs like we did this summer where we had young people cleaning up in their own neighborhood, getting paid to do that so they had a source of income to get things that they needed, but also had an ability to make a difference in their community. Shootings must stop. Consequences will follow, and violence doesn't stop. We know that. We're having more and more violence, gun violence, and it's becoming a solution for simple arguments. Violence is wrong, and obviously genuine offer to help to extend those who want it. We want to get in the community and make a difference, and we have to do that as a community as a whole. As a government role, there's a community role, there's a law enforcement role, and there's a judicial role. End of the day, we got to decrease that number. We just have to decrease that number. So council, we've talked about this. We provided a source. We want to put a resource, an RFP process out to hire a director, to hire a staff to coordinate, much like what we've done with our homeless task force, to address the issue that is a problem in our community, and it's affecting our entire community. So with that,
Mr. Mayor.
yes.
Mr. Mayor, we have a program already underway in the city of Columbia that was funded by the Department of Justice for $900,000 that is almost a carbon copy of what has just been explained to us by your slideshow. How is this going to dovetail with an existing program that's getting up and running right now doing the same thing?
Well, first of all, I would tell you that it's not a city program. We were named a partner, a third-party entity went out and got a justice grant, and it's focused on a single zip code in a single area, where this plan is the quarterback to deal with all the pockets through our community, which is not only District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, where we have identified those pockets. So it's far reaching beyond just the existing grant that is brought in there. And this will obviously dovetail and coordinate so that we can impact a larger part of our community.
And how many people do you plan to hire to fit into this office?
I think we're going to have to hire the director first and then figure out exactly how many more people would be within that budget cycle. It probably will be up to 3 people to be able to coordinate out there.
And these will be hired by the city manager like the homeless coordinator was?
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor?
Taylor?
Mr. Mayor, let me say, I respect your concept and your ideas and your commitment to reducing gun violence in Columbia very, very much. I feel it necessary to say, because I heard you include several of them as part of your program, but we have some blocking and tackling still to do too, and we can't let those go by the wayside in a new program. That's ensuring that our sworn officer positions are fully staffed in our police department. We're not where we need to be, and we need to double down on our commitment to get our police department fully staffed. We've got to make sure as a community that people who do bad things know they're going to jail. I mean, Sheriff Lott and the chief and others have called it a catch and release program. and it starts at the basics and goes all the way up. I mean, I'm just not so sure today that there's a fear in our community of being punished for doing something bad. And that's got to be, we've got to address that either as part of this, as a major part of this, or it's got to stay out in front. We've got to, and I saw where you've got a slide about engaging other local entities. I'm told that our solicitor's department, our solicitor's office, I guess is a better way to say it, had prosecutors at bond hearings before COVID, but they're not there today. You know, and we need the prosecutors that we pay for as citizens of Columbia, we do pay into the solicitor's office, fully engaged to make sure the people that commit these gun crimes understand they're going to stay in jail if you do something bad in our city. And last, I would just say, and I want to thank you for being willing to meet with Elaine Midkiff from the Jobs for American Graduates program here in the next 2 weeks, that the one thing that's out of our purview but in the middle of our purview is our high schools and our schools. I mean, the Jobs for American Graduates program, South Carolina has been a leader in that and addressing the most at-risk students that we have across our state in the ninth grade. And I tell folks a lot of times it's like a truant officer with a smile on his face, where these young people know that there's somebody that cares about them, that when they don't show up at school, they go find them and make sure nothing's wrong. That's, and if you're telling me, and I'm hearing that you're willing to incorporate these things far deep into this program, I'm with you. But if these things have to stand on their own, then these have to be a priority for me.
I would tell you that it's a hub and spoke process, because everything you talked about plays a role in it. But the police department can't continue to do it without all the resources, and they have to focus on those resources, so this complements what they're doing. Having conversations with our solicitor and our judges and others to talk about that, because you got to be tough on crime, but we also have to have an opportunity to prevent it. So it goes, we keep calling it the stool, which it is. It's government, it's community, and it's the judicial system. And all of those parts have to come together. But as we've seen with the homeless task force and being able to get these folks, you got to have somebody quarterback it. We didn't even know how many homeless services we had until we did that. We didn't know the type of funding that was out there for that, how much was being spent. We collectively now have a process to move us forward, and I see that moving in the same direction, which is incorporating all of those factions as part of it, because they're all part of the hub and spoke. Mr. McDowell?
Yes, let me just say, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you bringing this to us today. This is not the first time, but you've done and made, of course, some clarifying statements about your proposal for this gun control office. The data and the statistics are volumes. And of course, for our city, of course, if I read and listened very intently, I think it was said that African Americans and black men in not in South Carolina, but in Columbia, I think it was about 31%.
No, sir, 93% of our shooters.
93%.
31% increase over the last 2 years.
31%, I'm sorry. That's what I was shooting for. I'm sorry. Thinking about. It would seem to me that with the data you presented, and of course we're talking about $802,000, I need some more time to dig deep into this and to dig deep into the weeds. I think it's needed. I think it's necessary. I think our chief has, of course, played a very valuable role in looking at this document and knowing what those needs are in our community. But it seems to me that there needs to be some digging deep into, I don't have the presentation before us, and I'd like to have that in front of us so that when
Sent out this week.
Yeah, if we could get that document sent out before we make any clarifying or resolutional kinds of statements.
Could you clarify what your concern is? Because I'm going to be honest, this is the third time that I've come forward with this. I sent the information out ahead of time, and to be quite honest, we spend 3 times this amount of money paying third-party entities with hospitality money whose directors make $200,000 a year, more money than what we're trying to invest in gun violence. So I'm a little, just excuse me if I'm a little put back that, you know, I've been sharing all this information, so if we want some deeper and clarifying information, I'd like some very specific questions, because we need to start moving forward, because the numbers aren't decreasing, they're increasing today.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Mayor, but there has not, this is the first time, you've talked about it, of course you have, but this is the first time we've seen this in printed form and spelling out the program itself. I'm not disagreeing with what we want to do and what we need to do, because it is very much needed in our city. But I think there needs to be something that we can dig deep into the greenery of this thing. And I agree with you. You've expressed what you want to do, but this is the first time that I've seen it in written form, because I think we've got to talk about budgets. We got to talk about who does the hiring. Does the city manager takes care of that? Is that a part of, would that be a part of your?
Just discuss that.
Your responsibility?
If that is what you all direct, yes, sir.
Well, see, that's what I'm getting
Yes,
at.
sir.
And that's not to say you can't do that. What I'm
Right.
saying is there needs to be better clarification of what we need to get done, who does it, and because it's a need in our city. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Mayor. I'm just simply saying, yes, you've brought that to us. We understand that. This is the first time I've seen it in written form and in more deeper clarifying statements. So I agree with you, sir. Let's just make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of things. I do need to digest the PowerPoint, so I want to review that. And I think everyone here knows I have always supported, advocated for an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. So the concept I am very supportive of. I do have specific issues I have. I think that the dollar tag is a lot. I don't know if we need to start off with 3 people for 3 years, so I do have concerns about that. And then in response to Mr. Taylor, I would have to disagree from the standpoint of, if we look at, because other cities have done it, we need to follow what other cities have done because they have been successful in what they've done, as opposed to expanding. Y'all know I'm always about narrowing the focus and what folks are going to work on, because if it's too broad, we get nothing done. So take those comments, Mayor, as best as you can, but I do believe that 800,000 is a big dollar tag.
I will tell you that everybody that I've talked to who has an office like this, and our own police department, other folks will tell you it's not near enough, but you got to start somewhere, and we got to have opportunity to go after the other grants by establishing this office. So I would tell you that over a 3-year period, $200,000, and not considering what we dish out every year, third-party organizations, and we're talking about trying to save lives. We're talking about saving lives, not providing somebody's car payment.
Well, and actually, I'm glad you said that part, because I want to make sure. I think for me, spending the bulk of that $750,000 pretty much on salaries, maybe that's where my heartburn is.
Well, you know, at this stage, we have to budget for it, And I think until we get the director in there, the director may say you only need one person and we need the second person needs to be grant writer or put that money towards grants. We don't know that. We got to create a budget for us to move forward with, and that at the discretion of the city manager, how that could shift if that director that we hire says, well, I really don't, based on what we have in the community, I don't need 2 other people. What I need is grants, or I need this. And I think that's where this was staged. And I think we talked about it the last time I did the version of this. But, you know, look, I'm glad to clarify any questions. We're getting to a point where we have to start moving forward. So if there are other questions and details needed, let's bring it forth, because we need to move forward.
So just, oh, I'm sorry, this last thing.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I will tell you, I would be more than supportive of hiring and budgeting for one person to come in, develop the program, develop a budget, and give us like that path. I mean, I would be more than supportive of that. I just want to put that out there.
Brendan?
This position, much like our homeless task force director, new task force director, it needs to be very community-minded, know the service providers. Just quick comments. What is the profile that you see that director having, and what do you need from us today to move forward in having staff start preparing what that job posting might look like? Because I'm very supportive and want to move this forward with you.
I would tell you, I think, you know, first of all, we need to give the manager the ability to move forward with a designated funding source so that they can build up a profile. Because if we have no funding, we can't put a job description out. We can't do anything. We can't move forward. You know, so looking at it, forecasting over a 3-year period was because of what was left with the ARPA funding. It's a 4-year allocation that we have to use it within 4 years or 3 years left, because the time we can even probably hire somebody is probably going to be the first of the year, I'm guessing. I think we want to develop the criteria really about who has the experience and community base, because that's where it's got to start with, and has the relationship with law enforcement. And I think there are probably several candidates out there in our community, and there's probably several folks that are in neighboring communities that would be interested in applying. And I think when you look at the job descriptions that you see, these directors, a lot of it is from their community-based activities and how they interacted with law. Some of them have mental health backgrounds, some of them have addiction counseling backgrounds, some of the folks are involved in from school resource officers to former police officers in various. So there's a wide range on how we develop it, but this is where I think we have to sit down with staff and really carve it down and narrow it. And with the beauty part is multiple cities that have these offices are willing to share all of their information with us. So we're not starting from scratch, and we're not going down a path that there hasn't been guardrails put up. So I think we're strong there.
So are we taking a vote? Was this just another presentation, or are we taking action to move forward?
What I'm hoping is that council would endorse it. We could get it on the next agenda, because of where it is in the agenda today. It's not a votable item.
Are you discussing today how you want it to be more narrow? If it is coming back, is it going to come back in the current form for the current funding amount? I know that's, Mayor Rickman, what you're proposing. Or will we leave here today with some idea if it's being more narrowly tailored to come back as an action item? And does that...
We're not spending the money today, but having a budget that we know that we can build into, because we don't know 100% of the needs yet, because obviously getting the local, having the assessment, but this is one-time money with deadlines attached to it, and it's appropriated. It's what it was designated to be used for, or one of the resources it could be used for. So it's what I'm looking for, is the commitment, so that we can dive down with your team to put together the right job description, and I think that's the key to it all.
So the job description is one thing. I guess I'm trying to make sure I'm clear so we know how to bring it back. The 802,000 or however much it was exactly would certainly entail more than the job, right? So the budget, I would just work with you and your staff to actually compile what the whole dollar amount it looks like over the course of 3 years, including salary and benefits for one position.
Well, I mean, what we have designated here is which is what a standard office had, so we've got a designated amount there. Obviously, to go after grants and stuff for the others, bring that in, but having that as a whole budget, which we can adjust at a yearly basis, but I will tell you, I think you'll hear from all the experts out there that, this is the bare minimum. And so with that, I would push to have it designated and, in a year, we don't have what we want or we need less money or whatever, we can make adjustment. But because it's one-time money, I think we have to appropriate it for the entire 3-year period.
So, but again, I guess my question is, we're not taking a vote today. How do we move it forward to the agenda? Is that a city manager decision to move it forward, open up for 2 weeks for question input before we go to a thumbs up, thumbs down on the first reading for the program?
Is it my decision? It's not my decision, I don't think, on if y'all want to do the program.
No, how do we move it from where it is now, the third presentation, to it's actionable? Let's put it into play.
Well, I will take ownership of sitting with Mayor Rickman maybe and more thoroughly defining this. I'll be honest, I have not. I know I've seen the program just as you all have. I think some of my questions would probably be for Mayor Rickman and the team who've been working on this to help me explain how to delineate between efforts in CPD, and I know the intention is for it not to be housed there. I think that's intentional. So I haven't seen any job descriptions, so I'll do that. And I'll switch gears from homeless services now to Office of Gun Violence Prevention and focus in on how to help frame the job.
Well, I think the approach is very, very similar.
I think so, if this whole council is saying this is what we're going to do. I mean, I think I had that clear direction with that. And so I'm just trying to make sure before we spend a lot of time on me helping the mayor frame it as far as a staffing piece. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what y'all are asking for us to do with his program.
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Again, I think my list would be closer to Councilman Taylor's list, and I'm not sure that his list is going to be covered by the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And I also would endorse Ms. Herbert's recommendation that we limit this to one person that could be the coordinator, but that one person could do more of what's left on Mr. Taylor's list, because we already have a gun violence prevention program funded at $900,000 in the city of Columbia.
For one specific area, you can't keep confusing the conversation. It is one specific area which does not, let me repeat, does not cover all the other areas. So it's not.
That one specific area is 80% of the.
No, it's not.
It's
not 80%. That's incorrect information.
I think this is a duplication of a program, and I would not support it in the way it's presented.
So I want to be on the record that we support directors of ballets and all kinds of stuff getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding, but we're not going to fund or support an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Just want to know, is that what you're telling me? Because right now I'm more worried about lives and innocent lives being taken, hit, and have these issues We're talking about spending pennies of what this group spends, paying folks who are riding around in Porsches, Mercedes, getting paid six figures, and we want to bring a director in here to help us reduce. I just want to know, is that what you're telling me, Howard? Paying festivals and everybody is more important than taking money that the federal government has given us to put towards these efforts?
And they've already given us
I just want to know. I just want to, and that's a drop in the bucket. That's not it. Look at the millions of dollars that come in for programs, this and that, and we're talking about a program to try to reduce gun violence in our most challenged areas. That's all we're asking for, is a commitment to do with the money we have and leverage it to get something better. I'm just, I got to tell you, I'm just very put back at some of this. There's been a lot of information shared. This PowerPoint's been on the council's stuff since the agenda went out, so it's not like this is all new information. But if this council, I'd rather you vote right now and say, you know what, I don't support it. I'd rather continue to allow people to get shot in our communities than put money into this program.
If you put it on the agenda, you'll,
What was that?
it needs to make it to the agenda. That's at the root of it, Mr. Mayor. Take it forward. Request it to go to the agenda, and let's take our votes in 2 weeks. Whether you support the program, I support the program. I look forward to getting the questions answered that some of our colleagues have, maybe changing the program to meet their needs, but this needs to move forward.
This is a community discussion. We can make adjustments. I'm all for ideas, but the fact that we're trying to penny pinch on a program like this, I tell you, I'm just shocked.
Well, I want to agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to agree with you on this stance. I live in District 2. In District 2 and 1 is where you get your violent acts taking place. No question about that. So it's not an argument whether or not we're going to do the program or not do the program, sir. I think that the question and the concern is, let's put it on the agenda, let's have continued conversation, and let's be ready to do first reading next time. Simple as that. It's regrettable that young boys, young men, and families are being devastated by gun violence. I get it in my district every day. Actually, Tina and I get it every day. This whole city gets it every day. We're impacted every day by an act of violence, gun violence. Now, if we want to equate this to something that is totally, that you don't want to do it, hell, just say you don't want to do it. Just say you don't want to do it. Lives are still going to be shattered. Families are still going to be displaced because of violence. Now, let's put it on the table. Let's make sure it's refined, make sure our city manager has what she needs to make this thing work. And let's do a first reading.
Yes, ma'am.
And I will tell you, I got a call, I guess they're not here, I got a call from a news station yesterday asking about what the presentation was going to be. And I said, well, we're waiting to hear from the mayor. And this particular news person said, well, what happened to the committee with the mayor and Councilwoman Herbert and Councilwoman McDowell? And they picked it up from a discussion that was had in the work session. What I will say is, in order for us not to have this again, I think it is imperative that we sit down and discuss it prior to coming back to full council, to really have this discussion, because we don't need to have this full discussion like we're having it now. But we haven't been given that opportunity. So I would request that before it comes back, that we make sure we take the time to sit down and talk through the nuts and bolts, so that people can feel more confident. I mean, I'm the one that came up, I mean, like, I'm the one that wanted the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. But I won't just support any old thing, and just to be honest. So I would hope that we will have a meeting where we can discuss this in more detail, particularly with myself and particularly with Councilman McDowell, because our districts are the ones that are most impacted before we come back here for a vote. And the conversation may be totally different.
And Mayor, I will take responsibility too, because I don't know, I really take it very seriously about understanding something you're charging me to stand up or hire a person. I'll be honest, I don't know that you and I have had lots of conversations about this, and I know it's very important to you. So first and foremost, let me say, I'm a bit uncomfortable because I don't feel like I'm helping you articulate where we need to go or being able to answer the questions of the council. I'm not a big fan of just bringing something. I want you to get out of it what it is all of you collectively are trying to achieve. And I was asking, sidebarring with the chief a little bit, even though it wouldn't be housed in PD, what is the type person who would be a director of Office of Gun Violence Prevention? And he's saying like a master's or a PhD level person. Yeah, I need to familiarize myself with what that looks like, and I just haven't done that. I really, to be honest with you, thought that the office over at Busby Street that we've embedded over at Busby Street, which I know is, it has the Serve and Connect component. I thought when we talked about this at one point in time, we could integrate, while that, like you said, is more specific to that particular program. The office has been stood up there, and they have the staffing there, and we're contributing in that way with the office space. So I probably made an assumption, and I shouldn't have, that whatever the council holistically agreed to fund with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention would somehow be integrated with that piece. And I don't know, it still could be, maybe. I just need to think about how to advise on the staffing part. I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but I will certainly try to dig neck deep to get neck deep in it to bring you all something that you can take action on. And we'll sit and go through it line by line if we have to. It sounds like the Councilwoman Herbert is asking for a work session or just some meetings so we can get clear, because I do need the clarity as well on what the staff person looks like. And I'm hearing one person now, right? A director.
No, that was just what I said. The mayor asked for his 3 positions.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is the reality is that we've been talking about this. We have a basis. We got to make a commitment. You can't start talking about hiring people. You can't start doing this unless you know there's a commitment there and we have a basis to do it.
I agree with
that
you on
commitment.
that.
And for me, that's the first step. And as always, all employees work for the city manager in the city of Columbia. That is the way our charter works. I mean, that's not even a discussion point. For me, I think if there's questions, specific questions, concerns, comments, let's get them in. Let's formulate, we'll lay it out down to the detail, a similar thing, but conceptually, this is how you have to go forward. We don't have all the answers yet. We didn't have all the answers when we started the homeless thing. And look what we ended up doing. We're doing something that's impactful, changing our community, addressing an age-old issue with real responses and compassion tied to it. And I hope that's where we're headed here. I apologize for my frustration, but, we got to start reading materials. We got to start sharing stuff and making sure that as we go forward that we give the ability, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's one thing, but this idea that it's duplicated services, I could say that about the ballets and everything else.
You're bad on the ballets tonight, man.
Well, I mean, it's frustrating when you see the amount of money that we'll dole out. We'll give $800,000 to a group out of hospitality without asking to see their $990. Doesn't matter, but we talk about trying to change gun violence. You know, well, it's too much money. What is too much money? How much is a life worth today? I'll leave that.
I hear you, Mayor. And I think that there's a lot of great ideas on the table. I am supportive of this initiative, and I'd love to talk to you from a public health perspective, how I think we can be successful in terms of who would be successful in this role. I'm happy to meet with you and City Manager about that. There are a couple of models out of Baltimore, Portland, and I think somewhere else in the South, I think Atlanta, where we can kind of look to them to see what works. But I certainly think we need to continue some of these logistics and technical conversations in our off week next week and make sure that we have our ducks in a row so that we can take our vote on November 1st.
And I just want to interject, but that is not to, because I've already requested a meeting, so I just want to make sure I throw that in. So I don't want there to be a whole nother shift in a whole different direction with Dr. Bustles and her goals, when Rev and I have already asked for a meeting to discuss about what's going to impact our district.
Well, as an at-large member, that's also my district, so I'm happy to participate in that conversation as well.
We'll just have a group meeting. Whoever can be there, can be there. That's all I have.
All right.
That takes us to the City Council Committee referrals, reports, and new business. I'm not sure that, do we have any referrals? Okay,
Not
I
aware of any
don't think
referrals.
we have anything, and that would be for public input. Any additional public input?
Has anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir, and no one is online.
Is there anybody in the audience would like to speak? This is your opportunity to address council. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and City Manager. As you know, my name is Ada Doreen Skelton, and I live at 3818 Eureka Street in Columbia, South Carolina. I came up here to speak to you all about homelessness. I had applied for a position that I realized that position wasn't what I want to do. So I'm really glad that I didn't get it because it's not the field that I want to be in. I want to end END homelessness. I have several programs and plans that I know. I've talked to so many people, and everybody agrees with me that these programs would work. And I'm just asking the mayor, city council members. I even sent Miss Herbert. She asked for some of my plans because something I mentioned to her and Mr. McDowell. So I'm asking you all, I feel you for the gun violence. You know, it's my passion to end homelessness. And I'm just asking you to give me a job. I told them I'd take that other job for $25,000, but I'm glad I didn't get it. Because even $25,000, that job was not what I wanted. So I'm asking you now to consider making me a project manager over these plans that I want to implement to end END homelessness. And I know they will work. Like I said, I've talked to so many people, educated people with degrees, and they're all for me. So I'm asking you to give me some time to sit down with you all and go over my plans. I've got them all wrote out. Matter of fact, Ms. Wilson has a lot of them, even for the rapid shelter. I gave her specific plans, how that should be run. And I'm not telling you it's about me. It's something in me that gives me these plans. I mean, Even when I had applied, before I had applied for the job, I started getting thoughts about what to do. So can you schedule some time with me, Mr. Mayor
Be
and
glad
City
to.
Council? I mean, before this month is over, to sit down with me, and I want to work with planning, zoning, and community development in implementing these plans. And I promise you, you looked over the plans, didn't you, Dr. Herbert?
Ms. Herbert,
I mean,
and
Ms. Herbert,
no,
I'm sorry.
I didn't. And I just want to clarify, you left me a voicemail saying that you wanted to share some information with me. So when I sent you that message, I was saying, email me that information that you wanted to share with me. And I wasn't aware of what was going on with the job and position. I didn't know one thing had anything to do with the other. But what I can say with respect to positions, we just had a long budget season. We don't have any additional positions. We won't be budgeting for new positions, and that would be a whole new position that we don't have right now until next budget cycle. So, and the city manager can put that on the list of what we look at for 23, 24 as a consideration, but I don't think we have anything. There is no position like that now.
I understand that. I'm asking
And you see how we fighting over the, some other positions.
I understand that. $35,000, and then I'm asking you to put $1 million towards ending homelessness. Not for me, but to those departments and helping us in homelessness. What I want to say is that people's lives, this would also help with the gun violence. If we could get people off the streets. A lot of that is caused because people are on the streets, drugs and all of those things are caused because people are on the streets. So if we can put our effort towards helping people to live the kind of lives, every day I go home and I go to bed in my bed, not on a bench. And I just want you to think about that. If it was you, I've been in a situation where I could have been homeless, but because I know so many people and I have someone on my side that just would not let it happen. So these people don't have that. So just consider what I'm saying. $35,000, that's nothing. That's like a drop of water in the bucket to you. The city has the money. I do know that, okay? So, I hate to say, don't tell me that, because you can do it. You can create a position like tomorrow if you really want to. So, like I said,
Glad to hear your
this
ideas.
is my passion.
If you'll share them with us, I haven't gotten anything, but if you'll share them with them, I'd love
Sure.
to hear your thoughts.
So when would you like for me to share them with you?
You have to make an appointment, ma'am. I don't have my schedule right here. I don't
So-
even have my phone on me.
Yes, so I've tried to schedule appointments with you several times, and I haven't heard anything, so
Who have you spoken with?
I've spoken with the person in your department, the mayor's assistant. And a while back, you had a guy named Shelton working for you, is that correct?
Chris Sheffelton, yeah,
Yes.
that was back in February.
Okay. And I had called about some of these ideas. Of course, I didn't really have a plan then. But because I've been working with the unsheltered and, just talking to them and trying to do what I can do and on the task force and all, I've learned a lot.
Ma'am, I'm glad
what
to
we
hear
can
your
do.
thing, and we'll find a time to make it happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
And City Council.
Was there anybody else that wanted to speak at this time? Sir?
First of all, good afternoon, going on the evening. I want to thank the council for making consideration to multiple proposals to end gun violence. I'd like to just briefly bring to reality whoever you hire for these programs, please make sure that they have not only the educated reality of it, but the street smart and common sense. 'Cause one thing about it, it don't matter how much education you have, but if you don't know what the streets think, say, speak, you don't know the codes, if you don't know what the real agenda of what's actually taking place is, you will have ultimate failure. Again and again and again. I've seen so many programs come out. Sounds good. But who has the common sense to communicate with people that's on the street? So far, out of all the programs you have put, I have not seen none of it at all. I used to be highly involved in this activity due to health challenges of myself, as well as my fiance, AKA my boss.
Excuse me.
We both have. She had hip replacements and also have suffered with epilepsy, in which I was fortunate enough to go to Florida and have a major operation that removed the calluses on my brain that was causing my seizures. So I stepped out of community service. Now I'm back. I'm back with solution and with a vengeance of success. I personally want to make sure that you're on the right track of reality. And two other brief moments, I don't know, only allowed about 2 or 3 minutes, but make sure the people here be aware of the new gangs that's in town from the Latino community and from the Asian community. Do not touch that reality. You're talking about what's already here, but you have no idea what's actually already arrived. Focus on, again, people who understand what's going on in this country, who understand how South Carolina is a main focus point where they can launch in all directions. You need to be aware of that. Again, education is one thing, but education reality is a totally different reality altogether. One final thing, it's a movement here for corporations and individuals who take unincorporated land, come in to zoning, have one opportunity to speak. If they pass it, it can be stopped. If they don't, it can move on to you. But what y'all don't realize, they're coming in to build certain industry. It is supplied by a lot of builders to come in, take part, and also produce housing under the term of low cost, with the main purpose is to come in, put so-called affordable housing in, so anybody come in where they can come in and get out. It was none whatsoever rules, regulations of making sure of that housing is truly affordable housing. Take a look at that process and stop the old tradition that other people from outside the state have came in and mastered. I have more to say, but I know I only have a certain period of time. But please, take a look at that truth that I'm sharing.
Thank you for taking the time today, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your words. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. And Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Have a good evening.